been.
Thank you.
This is an approved format for a meeting during the coronavirus problems that we're having. And we're doing it by Zoom. It is going to be recorded and will be then available. There may be time delays between when somebody talks and the next person talks. You've probably seen that on television. I've not seen it this morning with Ron talking to everybody. It seems to be pretty immediate. We've got an agenda, and I want to go down the agenda item by item. I want the committee to discuss it. If there's no motion or action to be taken, it's just for discussion. When we're finished, we'll then open it up for additional comments from everyone that's not on the committee. If there is going to be some type of a motion after we've discussed it, I'll open it up for comments before we vote, so we got everybody's input beforehand. I'm expecting the meeting to take about 2 hours, maybe a little less, maybe not. We'll see. The first item on the agenda is the discussion of the sea grape trimming. I think it went particularly well. Anthony did a very good job. As of earlier this week, he still didn't have his plywood removed, and I've basically not threatened him, but been very harsh with him to get it removed, so it may be gone now. Any other committee member have a comment on the sea grape trimming? Joanne? Anything?
I think it was done well.
Speak up.
I think it was done well, and the workers were very adept at balancing themselves to cut these. We have a situation of 2 huge sea grape trees that are so large, they're near the fence with Ocean Colony. And I don't know what we might be able to do about them, because they do block the building, but one of them is just blocking the ocean as well.
You're talking about the closest one to the ocean?
Yeah.
Yes.
That we trimmed and just had a little canopy created instead of removing the whole tree.
Right.
The Anthony was afraid that if we cut too much out of the tree, it would kill the tree. And I'm not sure that we can remove that tree. We certainly couldn't do it this year. We might want to plug it into the big landscape project that we'll be talking about later. And if we can vote on that and discuss it at that time,
Yes.
that might be a good
I mean,
plan.
I do not see any problem with killing that one tree, because it should have been trimmed all along, as we said.
Mhm.
And it is a sea grape, but it is not it's not helping the Ocean Colony, because at that point it's just blocking the past the pool. The pool is
Understand. Understand.
still private for them.
Barbara, you have any comments on the sea grape trimming?
No, I don't.
Okay. Cheryl? Cheryl here? Did Cheryl ever get on?
Cheryl Deacon?
Yeah.
Yes, she was.
She's up there at the top somehow.
Cheryl, your microphone's not turned on. You got to
The
turn
way
your
to
microphone.
turn your microphone on is to click on your picture, and then down in the left corner, you have to unmute. You'll see a red line through your microphone. Click on that, and that will unmute you.
Good morning.
Lynn just unmuted herself. Maggie, you still need to unmute yourself.
Let's take a look on our side here. Is Cheryl Deacon, is Deacon on the list?
No.
Cheryl Deacon, oh, here, up here. We got to do this, submit her back in. She went away. And we got this one going too, so she should be there. Let's try it. See if
So Cheryl, are you back?
Wait, give her a chance to go.
Yeah, Cheryl just came in, although I see a chair, not a person. So what you need to do is you need to click here, then you'll see this down below. Look what I'm showing you. See this down below?
Oh,
And then you click.
on there.
Yeah.
Cheryl, are you there?
Still don't seem to have Cheryl.
I'm going down to Cheryl's apartment.
Okay, well,
What about if you hit that little arrow?
I'm not going to touch anything.
Mine's good.
I am just not going to
There's
touch
Maggie.
anything. Maggie's in, I see.
Yes.
So any of the other attendees have any comments on the just completed sea grape trimming? Okay. I will comment that the trimming budget is pretty well used up as a result of the sea grape trimming. And we probably won't have much budget left to do any oaks or palm trees later in the year. But all of the trimmings we did do were pretty essential.
Now I came back here to get on my CO Deacon at Comcast.
Is Ron still putting the
Here, use this.
monthly? Is he still
Let me
putting?
get on.
Here, just use this.
Who's Ron?
Ron Kreider.
Okay.
He's not doing anything with the financials.
Okay, now speak to
He
them.
said he's putting the.
Hello, do you hear me? It's Cheryl.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
We can
Ron
see you
just
and hear
brought
you.
down- Okay, Ron just brought down his tablet. Hang on, because I'm standing
Okay.
up here.
Okay. Cheryl, did you have any comments on the recently trimmed sea grapes?
No,
Okay.
except that yes, they look great because I learned yesterday Anthony paid $2,000 for new blades. And so he didn't use the machete like I guess most of them do. So
No, he
I
didn't.
was very pleased to hear that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So we've got nothing else on sea grapes. Nobody else wanted to talk about sea grapes, so we'll move right on to the lawn maintenance. Joanne, I just wanted you to talk about this weekly maintenance and your weekly meeting with the folks and how they've been doing with that.
Oh, yes. Barb DeMullen and I have been walking the property during the week to come up with a reasonable list that we believe the landscapers could do in the time allotted. And then when the crew leader arrives with the rest of them, I go out and we walk over and look at all the different things that were done. Unfortunately, we do not have the complement of workers. We do not have enough trimmers. We have excess on the edging and other things that might be able to be done every other week, almost every week. Well, they may only have 5 things on the list, and 2 of them aren't completed. So I have asked that we have a all-hands meeting this week so we can determine what the names of each person,
This
their
week,
names this week, their names and their job, what they were, their specialty, whether they're trimmers, whether they're, I don't know, different specialties.
and
we
that
have.
is today or next week?
It's today.
Today. Okay. And what is that, just when they get here, the meeting will happen with these
That's
folks?
my understanding.
Okay,
and that's
good.
what I put down.
Any other comments on weekly maintenance?
Well, Chad, it's Lizzie. It's
Hi, Lizzie.
Lizzie.
Mhm.
I did send over Joanne's request, but I didn't get it until yesterday morning after Adrian had already left the shop. So whether or not we'll be able to handle everything on that list is a question.
Okay. Because they had asked that we get it in on Wednesdays, which is a little early for us, but, instead of
Well,
Thursday.
yes, rather than doing it, I probably should have turned it over to Barb because I had many doctor's appointments with my husband and he was just come out of the hospital.
Right.
Right.
We had talked about getting some bids for lawn maintenance contractors, and we being Joanne and I met with two different contractors. The maintenance monthly is around $3,600, I believe, with Tropical. The only bid we got is $4,600 from the folks that are doing Ocean Colony. If anybody in the building has any suggestions for other maintenance contractors, please email them to somebody on the committee so we can make that contact. I don't know that we definitely want to change from Tropical. We just want to have some arrows in our quiver for when we're having to renegotiate with them later this year. Henry of Lakeview Lawn Management is the one that bid $4,600 and per month, but he had a little note in his, tell me if we're in the ballpark or something, and we can always work with this. He is the guy that's working at Ocean Colony and was recommended strongly by Rod Foster, the president of Ocean Colony. Any other comments on the lawn maintenance before we move on? Discussion of future palm and oak tree trimming. As I commented on the sea grape, we've pretty well used up our trimming and budget for the year. I think we're probably going to have to make a request to the budget committee when it comes around for increases. I don't know that this has been increased in a while. Part of the big landscape project that we'll be talking about later that I want to do is whoever we're dealing with to give us a maintenance schedule of what they recommend we need to do. So we're not kind of half going to do one thing this year. Our budget in trying to replace things is non-existent. I mean, we just don't have the money to do some of these things.
We actually increased that budget by a third in the last budgetary session.
Increase the budget by a third?
Correct.
Okay. I'm not sure I was aware of that, but was that to do with the spraying, fertilizing, Ann?
No, that was to do with the replacement and mulch. There's a category called replacement/mulch.
Right, that had 9,000 in it.
Yeah, and it was 6,000 the previous year.
Okay, so it's at 9, it's still, in my opinion, pretty low. We've got a lot of projects that if we can then plug them into this landscape project for discussion, we can then probably live in the budget that we've got right now. We probably will have to do the palm trimming for those that are in the yard as opposed to those that are in the hammock, the other trees, just for ocean view ability for most of the residents. I don't think there's too much in the way of oak trimming that's really necessary. We've got one or two that could be trimmed, but I think they can be put off a little bit longer. Any other comments on palm and oak tree trimming?
Yeah, we did a lot of oak tree trimming last year, so I think that, Chad, you're right on that can be delayed.
Okay. Next item is discussion of the planters in 105 and 106. This has been an issue for a long, long time. We've even got a memo from Alan Romano when they first started managing here, where he came out and said, really, there's nothing's going to grow there. And don't put any mulch. It'll create mold, which it now has, and put in river rock was his recommendation. And we've talked about that. Now, since that issue or that item has come up for discussion, we've had several other suggestions, being artificial lawn, maybe putting some of the ice plants that we've got out there in the yard, or maybe frog fruit. Maybe the rabbits won't get up that high to eat the frog fruit. Maybe that'll work there. But we really, really owe it to these folks to get their planters taken care of instead of having the mold flying around all over up there. does the committee have any suggestions? I'm thinking we just need to get an expert to come in that we rely on instead of just getting Joanne's opinion and my opinion and Barb's opinion and Nancy and Jackie's, and figure out what it is so we can get this handled. The only person I know that around here that we might talk to would be either, I think her name was Haley, Nikki Haley from the Florida Extension Service that came by once upon a time.
Yes.
Maybe, I don't know, that I want to talk to a grower because they'll probably want to sell us something that's growing and it may not grow. I think we just need to get something done here. Anybody on the committee have any other suggestions?
Well, it's Cheryl.
Hi, Cheryl.
I look down on both of those, and as I look down, I see, for me, there's only a few weeds coming up. That all was put in how long ago? A long time ago now. Wasn't
The
it?
stuff you're talking about is the mulch was put in a while back?
Yes. Because it was before I think before the hurricanes, because I think it got blown, a lot of it had gotten blown out, away. I don't see a problem with the two, is what I'm trying to, that's my, what I'm trying to say. I don't see a problem with the two, except that they need more mulch just to replace that's blown away. I think they both, I'm looking down at them, and believe me, I've spent years complaining about how they look and that they've had mold and that the weeds are growing. And I think they look perfectly fine, and they just need a couple of bags of mulch on them, in my opinion.
One of them-
Cheryl,
Yes.
Lizzie, go ahead.
the mulch is the thing that's been the problem in terms of it's not allowing the beds to dry out at all. So the last time we didn't replenish it all the way, we just continued working with what we had.
Right.
What we're trying to do is dry out the beds so that because they're in the shade, nothing really, it's not whether anything will grow. Everybody's been happy with what grows there. It's maintaining it. The maintenance is the water issue.
Well, what do we do different than what's been in there for 40 years? You know, I mean, all this has just happened in the last maybe 5 years, but I thought it was under control. I came back and I looked down and I thought, wow, these things still look great. They just need a little more mulch to fill in.
The difference is that the maintenance people, Tropical is now maintaining them. Before they were maintained by the owners. Tropical's been maintaining them, so the plants themselves are doing fine. And the mulch has been doing fine. It's just that it will not allow any water to evaporate to let the beds dry out. Now, on Jackie Large's planter, there's an issue with the downpipe leaking, and I know that's, we've got what do you call it? A gutter company coming to fix that leak. That will give less water into hers. But the water fact that is the biggest issue, that's what brings on the artillery plants that spray the black stuff all up against the building. So we have to find a way to get a mulch that allows it to dry out. So the wood mulch is not a good choice for those particular beds. So that's why I guess all the way back to, 5 years ago, Alan Romano was saying use river rock because that doesn't absorb any water. So we need to find something that won't absorb water.
Are those the little pebbles or
No,
bigger?
those are the larger
Large.
rounded ones. And they're expensive.
Okay.
Well, I want to say this. I also looked down at one of the patios, the apartment garden, and we have to remember, March we had practically no rain all month. Now, April we got a little bit of rain, and we're expecting rain this weekend, but part of it is the fact that we haven't had a lot of rain this spring, and so there just were some bare spots over the plastic, and if that mulch was just scraped over the plastic a little bit temporarily, it's not a problem. But
And Jackie, they're gone until next January. So as far as I'm concerned, that would be fine. Even if you didn't put any more, it looks better. I've seen it with so many weeds and whatever. I think it
Right.
looks fine.
Well, I think since Tropical's been doing them, weeds are not the issue in terms of the looks, but the artillery weed, which is coming about because of all the moisture, that's the thing that sprays the black, almost like a tar, up against the other plants and onto the building. And
Okay.
that is brought about by the moisture.
It sounds like we need to wait until you've got the gutter fixed and see
I
if we
think
can get it dried
I
out.
think that's a big part of it, but that's only Jackie's. You still have the other one that's
Well,
got the
to me,
same
yeah.
problem with the artillery weed.
Yeah, to me, they're both the same because I see them both. And actually, Bignells are going to leave probably Friday or so they'll be gone. So both, unless there is something that's going to explode in there, I think we can table this for a while until.
Okay, so we can let Tropical continue the maintenance as we continue to look for what we can use instead of a wood mulch.
Right, and maybe if they would just spray the weeds. John had somebody, and it could have been Tropical, one time come in and boy, just wiped them out, and they stayed out for a long time. So maybe it was Tropical. I don't recall because it was so many months ago.
I just
but-
hate to wait until they come back to get to it and resolve it. Then I'd like to go ahead and keep. They've been waiting for at least 2 years that I'm aware of, maybe longer, to get something dealt with, and I'd like to get it dealt with for them.
Well, I think we can do that, Chad. I think what we're saying is it's not something that we have to worry about today fixing immediately, but we do have to keep working forward on finding the proper mulch product to use that will not retain moisture.
How do we
Right.
go about doing that, Lizzie?
Well, there's a place over on US 1 that's got a variety of different mulches over there. It's a stone place, and I think you're going to, going back to what Alan Romano said, I think we need some kind of a stone or shell product that does not have wood in it. That's what's holding the moisture is the wood.
Okay.
What about, hello?
Okay.
Yes, what about using a colored rubber mulch?
Did I lose this?
That's Jay Grutman that's talking
Yeah,
now.
that sounds good.
That's something else we can investigate.
Say that again, Jay. Sorry,
It
my
was a
screen went
rubber-
blank.
There are different types of multicolored rubber mulch that does not retain any water, nor does it decompose in a short run.
And where can we see that?
Locally, I'm not sure. I know where to get it in New York and in other places, but down here, I'm sure there's somebody that sells it. You just have to
Ron-
investigate where.
Ron Kreider was hypothesizing that Rock City Garden may have it.
They may. They
Yeah.
may.
Cheryl, would you take that on to go talk to them and see what you can find about it?
Yeah, Jay, if you can just email me your thoughts on those or what it looks like, a photo or something, that would be great.
I'll try to find something. I have it in one of my buildings in New York. I'll try to get a photo.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Joanne, would you talk to us a little bit about the experience we've had with planting the frog fruit or ice plant? And if you draw any conclusions, for those of you that are not on the committee, we're experimenting with some things to plant in that barren area on the north side of the north crossover, which that we can't get any grass to grow, and it apparently has been a couple of years. So we've been experimenting with some ground covers. The first one was frog fruit, but it seemed to be particularly tasty to the rabbits. And so we've also then had, I think from Cheryl, recommended ice plant, which has now been planted in that area.
Yes.
When did you get to plant that, Joanne?
It was last Friday, a
Last
week ago Friday. And it's a delicate balance because the sprinklers, John informed us, are going to sprinkle that area.
They are?
Yes.
Okay.
And they don't like a lot of water. When we really can't determine how much a lot is. They like dry conditions and a lot of sunshine. The big advantage is that Cheryl found a product that can be a soap, actually, that can be sprinkled around the plants that seems to deter rabbits. We haven't seen any rabbits
Oh,
right
okay.
around there. So
Okay.
we're hoping that we're just amazed. I mean, we used to see rabbits over there eating the frog fruit regularly.
Okay.
They don't like Irish Spring soap.
Yes, but they've also moved to the south side of the building. If you, at dinner time, look on the south side, the lawn is covered with rabbits.
Yes, it is.
And I think they're still on the north side as well. We just got a lot of rabbits.
Well, on the
Maybe-
north
Maggie-
side,
We're going to
on
have
the
more
north
rabbits.
side, we have a huge infestation of moles. I don't know if you've seen those, but they've even come out and gone up and down the walkways to the beach.
The moles.
The moles.
Right. We've got a lot of moles.
We do.
Yeah. I just wanted,
Go ahead,
I
Cheryl.
just wanted to tell Maggie that I don't have enough of the Irish Spring soap chips to put all over the south lawn.
Joanne, you said the moles are even in the bromeliad garden,
Yeah.
and they seem to be out in the annuals that we planted out by the guardhouse in the point. There's a lot of dirt upturned with moles out there.
Oh,
Well, last year, Chad, we had a terrible time with them, and I sprinkled mothball flakes up there, and that deterred them. They left the area. So
oh,
we may want to put some more mothball flakes up there to get them out of those flowers.
Okay. Is that something you can look into for us,
oh, sure,
Joanne?
certainly.
Okay, lovely. There are two issues that have been brought to my attention by other residents. In the south sea grapes, there are still some vines that didn't get removed by the trimming. We need to get those out or they'll take over our sea grapes like
Yes.
on the north side. And we've got some carrot woods that are really taking over the, now follow this if you can. It's the northwest corner of our southwest sector. Right in the corner as you enter the driveway to the guardhouse. And there are a lot of carrot woods that are interfering with the oaks.
Yes, that is critical. Yes, the removal of those.
Right. I wonder if we can get somebody to bid on removing the vines and the carrot woods. Maybe get Tropical to give us a price, a price to deal with that when you see them.
Yeah.
Ask about that. And maybe I'll call Anthony, or Cheryl, you want to call Anthony?
I don't have his number, but yeah, I should. Yeah, I'll be happy
Okay. Okay. And see if he'll give us a price on that. And
to. Okay.
then we can get those two. I think I've got enough money in the budget to take care of those items.
It's in the northwest corner of the south. Say
That sector.
That's the easy way of thinking about it is you're driving into the building. You're
Exactly,
in front of the
yes.
guardhouse. It's on the right-hand side behind the
Yes.
wall.
Exactly.
Okay.
Behind the wall.
Okay.
Okay, we're down to the major issue for today, I think, is the proposal that we have an overall landscape project. We've had a 3-year plan, and it tries to do a little nibbling at the problem and a little nibbling at the problem and a little nibbling at the problem, and it's just not getting anything taken care of. Had we not had this necessity of clearing out the northeast sector, I don't know that we'd be dealing with this now, but since we've got to undergo some kind of a project to deal with the northeast sector, I'm suggesting that we throw in all of the grounds, problems, or issues that we need to complete and basically bring the Victoria back to ground zero. So our maintenance budget will be literally for maintaining instead of restoring. And I'd sent out to the committee an outline, and I hope everybody got it. Cheryl, did you get it?
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
May 4th.
May 4th.
Is that it?
Does it say?
Can you see it?
What's it say at the top?
It is May 4th.
That's
yeah.
it.
Okay.
It starts at general requirements.
That's
This is
it.
where I put all my notes.
That's it. That's
Okay.
it.
Okay.
So in this issue, what I'd like to do with those that are kind of looking on, I want the committee to kind of talk about some of the suggestions, and I don't mind that you all chime in also. We've got such a small group attending here. As far as general requirements for the entire project, I want to use as much existing material as possible. I want to try to obtain as much of the original look of the Victoria as possible. I don't want to make changes if we can help it. We need to minimize our costs. Key issue on the north side is block the views of the fountains. We also want to maintain the blockage on the south side. And we want to keep a border between us and A1A to keep the noise down. We want to open up your ocean views as much as we can while still doing this blockage on all sides. Remove and replace dead or dying plants. We've had some problems over this last year with the hibiscus behind the pool house. I'm not sure all of those are going to come back. So maybe we need to replace all or some of those. I want the people doing the work to prepare us a maintenance schedule, and I want to have them prepare a replacement list of suggested how long these plants should last, that we ought to be able to replace them. So perhaps we can put something in our reserve budget and don't have to dip into a contingency fund or some other assessment at the time. Let's get it done now. Did anybody have any other suggestion for just general requirements on such a project? Joanne?
Yeah.
Any?
I have a suggestion, if I may.
Go, Jay.
Because this is going to be a substantial project, I strongly urge the committee and the board to hire a professional landscape architect to do an outline of everything that's needed, not just now, but that we can refer back to over the next 10 years. Yes, it will cost us probably $15,000 or $20,000, probably
Jay, let me interject. We have already interviewed 4 of those types of persons. We've narrowed it. We talked to an outfit in South Florida. We've talked to Rock City Garden, who sent out their person. We've talked to Chris Runge, who is doing the project at Ocean Colony. And we had a 4th one that I think Jim Stasek talked to, Creative Landscaping.
Are these actually licensed landscape architects?
2 are designers.
We need a licensed landscape architect, believe me. It's not much of a cost difference. And we're going to get a lot more bang for our buck.
I do have another name, Jay and
Possibly.
and Chad.
Okay.
Her name is Robin, and I can't remember. It's a funky name, but she's been president of a garden club, and she's been around a long time, and I could ask her to come out when we feel we, would want this.
Okay,
Right.
Following along with Jay's recommendation of a licensed landscape architect, is she?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so fine. I have no problem with that. I mean, we want to turn over as much as possible. I'm not from here, so I don't know these folks. I have to rely on the residents to suggest people to me, other than
Okay.
just going in the yellow pages or going on Craigslist or whoever these other people are on.
And quite honestly, Chad, any quality licensed landscape architect is not going to market themselves on a Craigslist, a Yelp, or a Google.
Well, I'm going to say that if I found them there, I probably wasn't going to use them anyway.
Oh, okay.
So I think you and I are probably in accord on that, but we do need recommendations.
Sure.
These people just don't come out from under their rock. and
No, but
come knocking on the door.
I'll try to get the name of the landscape architect that's done the work at Johns Island. And he's not going to be
Chris Runge that is doing Ocean Colony, was at Johns Island for, he said, I think 18 years, and then set out to do his own company. So
The person I'm thinking of is the one that did all the landscaping for the new clubhouse.
don't know. I wouldn't know who that person
I
is.
understand.
Uh-huh.
Which clubhouse, Jay? The beach
The
club,
beach.
the golf club, or the West Course?
Beach Club.
Okay.
Lizzie, was that the one that Peter Graham was president during his term?
Peter Graham was president of one of the condo associations. And see, and that's what people have to be careful of when you talk about Johns Island. There's over 47 associations there. So when you say somebody is a, landscaper for Johns Island, there's no such thing. Each one of the associations has their own.
Yeah, but no, this was not a landscaper. This was actually the architect that came in, I believe, from Palm Beach or Jupiter to do the work for the clubhouse.
Well, and that's easy enough to get. That's just a call to Jippola.
Good.
Okay, if somebody will take it upon themselves to get that name and get it to us, we'll talk to them as well.
And, just to not surprise anybody, we're probably looking at a cost of at least 15 or 20,000 just for his.
The prices we got, Jay, Chris Runge is to do an initial plan just for the northeast sector was $3,000 plus.
Right.
The outfit we brought up from South Florida, who specialized in doing condominiums, apartment buildings, universities, large projects, wanted $40,000 to do the plans.
That's
We dismissed that immediately. That was just well beyond anything that I'd want to spend, and I couldn't ask anybody else to spend it.
Realistically, we're looking at least 15 to 20,000.
I don't doubt that.
How about Rock City?
And
Rock
what
City
would
is
be
not
the
a
problem
landscape
with using Rock City, Jay?
Pardon me?
What would be the problem with using Rock City? They're well known.
They're not licensed, and they're not licensed landscape architects. They sell shrubbery. They sell and maintain the products that they sell.
I believe he is. I know Rhonda is. Is it Rhonda?
Rhonda Lau
She is.
is not. She's just the owner, but
Right.
But
do
they
you know whether
employ an
Wade-
architect.
Say again?
They
Lizzie?
employ an architect. Neither Rhonda nor Tom are landscape architects.
Okay.
No, we
They
know that.
employ an
I
architect.
think really what we need to do is not only find a landscape architect, but to find one that's worked on properties commensurate with quality projects in this immediate area as a reference point. Because if we're going to spend about $100,000 to redo things at this property, let's do it so that it enhances the value and not keep going back over it and over it.
Committee comments?
I
Well,
agree.
I agree, but the biggest problem has always been maintaining. And this that I look out onto, I had one heck of a time just getting anything trimmed in there. So that's, I think, our biggest problem is we have to have
But
it
we-
maintained. It's
but
a
we can also-
shame that all this had to be taken out because it was
Well,
so dead.
But
and
we can
it's such
also,
a huge-
Cheryl, we can also specify to any landscape architect we choose that we want to install low-maintenance shrubbery.
Absolutely.
These people,
Yeah, absolutely.
it's wonderful that everybody tries to contribute whatever they try to do, but you've got 7 cooks in the kitchen. You need one chief cook to make the map, and then we can subsequently help out if we choose by doing things on our own. That's my opinion.
hmm
If I can
Anybody that
interject?
go ahead.
Yep.
Go ahead, Lynn.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to note that and these are all good ideas, but the issue with the borders and the big areas near the A1A has always been that it's Florida, and you can't build something that won't get weeds in it or other intrusive plants that you don't plan on. It takes a great deal of maintenance every year. In other words, a lot of money to maintain that area. If you're going to go, everything has to be purely what we want and it's only native and et cetera, et cetera. Part of the issue, like with sea grapes and such, is that you can clean them a little more easily. But if you have, what we had was a natural border, you're going to get into a lot of money if you're trying to keep it pristine. So that's a huge issue with the budget. I mean, it wasn't neglected prior years. It was just very difficult to pay for something that nobody wanted taken down or bulldozed simply because there were some weeds in there. You have to be able to look ahead to how much money you're willing to spend once you've decided that this is all going to be, as I say, pristine natural plants. Florida has natural plants that aren't desirable.
And a lot of, I will comment on one thing Jay said. I agree that we need to have low maintenance, but there is no such thing as a no maintenance.
No,
Correct.
there's always going to be a level of maintenance, but a professional that deals in this is just going to be more knowledgeable. That's his job.
Absolutely. And we have never pretended, this committee has never pretended to be that knowledgeable and trying to do it on our own.
I mean, everybody, I think, appreciates what is tried, but it's very frustrating that a plan, and yes, this is after the fact, but it's very frustrating that a plan was not implemented prior to the removal as to how it was going to be replaced. Simple as that.
Well, maybe you haven't heard from me, but I'm going to say it because most everybody have heard it. But I was as shocked as everyone else when I walked out one morning and saw this cleared swath in the northeast sector. We hired Anthony's to clean it out, to clean out the vines, to clean out the weeds, to clean out the dead wood. And he got in there and he said, it is all dead. I need to remove it all.
I'm not talking about what happened 2 weeks ago. I'm talking about what happened a year and a half, 2 years ago.
What happened a year and a half ago?
I don't know anything that happened that far. I wasn't here.
You don't, what we currently have on the north side is basically a pile of dirt because that was very dense.
That's what he's talking about.
That's what
Jay.
I'm talking about, Jay. That wasn't that long ago. That was just October,
Right.
September.
I would
Actually, August. August.
I think it was a little bit earlier than that, but nevertheless, that's what I'm referring to. Maybe I'm not getting my dates exactly right because I do have a lot of things on my mind, but what I'm referring to is, what we should have done or could have done, we need to deal with the problem today to remediate it. So there's no point really even looking back. The bottom line, as you pointed out, Chad, is that we need to obscure looking into the side windows, side of a Fountains building. It doesn't enhance any value to any unit in this building to stare at a cement wall.
Absolutely. But in order to redo what was there, we have to clear to start with.
Of course.
It was not intended to be cleared.
Okay.
I have to stress that. That was not the intention of the committee when we got that
I
cleaned up.
understand, but there was a lot of lack of communication, maybe for better explanation, that all of a sudden I came down and things were cleared out. I'm not talking about Anthony's. I'm talking about before Anthony's.
No, nothing was cleared before Anthony's. We hired Anthony to do 2 projects. We hired Anthony to do the sea grapes just recently,
Right.
and he was the one who cleaned up the northeast sector last August, September. It's the same company, same person.
I wasn't even sure. I wasn't sure who the company was, but nonetheless, we just need to go forward with this now.
Correct.
Rather than beating it. And quite honestly, I think not this multi-year plan. Do the couple of thousand special assessment. Get a person or persons in here that are qualified. Get the job done. Make the place look finished, not like we're under construction for landscaping, and just move on with life.
Okay, can I interject once again? I'm sorry.
Yes.
I don't want to talk over
Yes,
anybody.
Lynn.
This is
Go
always
ahead.
difficult. Yeah. The point I was making was on that same, let's plan ahead, although I don't mind looking behind to make sure we don't do that again without understanding what our plan is. I get what you're saying about the, what happened last, August, September. None of us knew that was going to happen. But a lot of that could have been avoided if we'd known that that plan was to take out, my words previously were about the fact that you're going to run into problems like that unless you have a high maintenance budget. You're going to have to be able to maintain that, or it will go back to what Anthony and Cheryl Deacon and the committee were looking at as far as, issues on something that was that thick. You have to look ahead and say, okay, what we had was a nice solid border. Maybe some people didn't like it, but if you're going to change it, you needed to have a plan ahead of time so that A, people weren't surprised, and B, that you could plan for the fact that once you went in there, you weren't going to be able to pick and choose things out of there. Not everything was dead, but there was a lot of stuff that people didn't want in there. All I'm saying is don't ignore what happened before. We need to know that we're planning ahead, and unfortunately now we're going to have to spend a lot of money, and then we're going to have to say, okay, and we're willing to spend a whole lot more money to do maintenance. Because again, I've dealt with Florida landscaping my whole life, and you have to know that you're going to either have a very dense buffer that you can't go in and clean, or you're going to have a thinner buffer like we do on the south side with the seed grapes, and make it easier to clean.
Are there any other comments, Joanne? It looks like you're raring to say something.
This is my comment. I understand. Well, I think we should give consideration to setting aside a, what do you call it, Ann Woody? You said we could have
Reserve.
a reserve fund for landscaping. It would be more solid and less subject to the changing leaders, committees. And I do think we should work toward that. And Ann said that it meets the criteria for having a reserve fund. Isn't that so, Ann?
Well, what you need in order to have reserves is you need a replacement cost and an expected life. If you can give me a replacement cost and an expected life, I can then have a reserve category. Of course, it requires that the community as a whole approve the reserve budget, but that's always the case.
Well, it's always been a line item on the budget itself, and it should have been, stuck to at some point, or noted that we were going to spend, an extra $100,000 to redo the entire landscape. So that's my point, is whether it's a reserve or not, we should have a budget, and we should know what the budget is, and the people should be aware of how much that will impact all of our fees. That's just the point.
Let me explain a little bit about the budget, having managed it for 3 years. You have an operational budget, and you have a reserve budget.
I get the difference in case you're doing that just for me. I know what you're talking about. I'm just saying that both of them, whether it's in a reserve or whether it's in the budget, we need to know ahead of time and not be surprised by the fact that we're going to have to, an extra $40,000 to spend. We had a budget, a landscaping budget, and we outspent it tremendously a couple times. So now we have to, I think, plan ahead and make sure that we have a budget that's agreed upon, which is something that everybody here votes on, all the owners, so that we know what we're going to be spending.
Actually, we have not. I was in charge of the budget for the last 3 years, and we have not tremendously overspent. We have no reserves for landscaping, so all of the costs for landscaping have been coming out of operational budget, and it's the operational budget. We have overspent in some categories, but we've not overspent overall.
And this year we are
Putting
not,
it in different categories. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chad. I'm sorry.
this year we have not overspent our budget. The budget is run two different ways by whoever you talk to. I've worked on it as an annual budget, and we are still within our annual budget, and we will not go over our budget without getting some kind of approval somewhere. I don't intend to go over, period. But, you know, last year, I don't know whether we went over or not, but
Yeah.
these items are in the budget each year. They're approved by the owners. So I'm not sure where all this is coming from, that you don't know what the budget is and what it's being spent for.
I do. I get the budget things every month from, from the
AR choice.
AR Choice, and maybe you're categorizing things differently, but you just did say that we're now out of money in May for any tree trimming. So that must be a separate part of what landscaping money is used.
Let me then explain exactly how the budget is organized.
Well,
You-
wait a minute. I don't want you to go into all that. You can do that with me personally another time. Everyone doesn't need to listen to that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we should get back to the landscaping meeting and go to a budget
Yeah, we're
meeting on a
getting-
different time.
Yeah, we're
Right.
getting a little off track here. Let's talk to the committee now. What is everybody's feeling about proceeding? Jay's recommended we kind of discard any non-professional landscape architect and go look for another one. I think we've got one with Chris Runge. Do we want to talk to a couple more? I personally am very happy just using Rock City Garden and their landscape person that we have talked to there. I don't know whether he's an architect or not, but I feel from having talked to him that he's well qualified for the job.
Could I ask?
And I wouldn't hesitate.
I'm just curious, what is the architect from Rock City quoting for a bid price to do a landscaping for this entire property, an outline, a map that will take us over a 5-year period so that we can refer back to it?
We haven't hired him to do anything yet, Jay. That's still what we're talking about, and he has told me he will do those things.
Okay, but he hasn't, at this point, we
No
have
one
not
has.
bid. Okay.
All we've done so far is talk to people that could help us with the project.
Okay, but thus far, no bids other than the one for 3,000 and the one for 40,000 have been.
As far as bidding for doing
Design.
planning,
Yes.
correct. Rock City will do plans after they are hired.
Uh-huh. Okay. I mean, my personal feeling, just my personal feeling, is that if you hire an independent person other than the landscape supply company, things are being checked and balances are better in place.
I understand, but now we're on the committee. Joanne, what is your thinking? You're right here, so I can pick on you more.
My thoughts about what now? We're
Are
talking
we
about
ready?
somebody-
Do we want to get somebody else to talk to? Do we like the two that are kind of remaining in our gun sights with Rock City and Chris Runge? And
Well, we did get quite a bit of information from Chris Runge.
We did.
On his requirements as far as like a deposit and being paid at various stages, and his.
Can you lean towards the microphone?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
At Ocean Colony, it is over a 3-year period. He did the plan for them. Of course, they have private homes. That's not part of the plan, but the other areas. And so that's pretty solid. We have some confidence in him. And if we're looking for an architect, then we would ask Rock City to tell us who they use. If they don't use just themselves, talk with
I
that
think they do
person.
use Wade. What's Wade's last name? Do you know? Ron?
I don't know. We all will know him by Wade.
Yeah, okay.
All right. No, well, that's what we want to do. We definitely want a landscape architect.
Hey,
Okay,
Joanne, or
Barb,
Yes.
do you have any input on our topic about whether we need to look at more landscape architects? Do we want to just stick with the two that we've got now? Chris Runge, who did Ocean Colony, and then the landscape designer from Rock City.
I don't see a problem with those two. This Chris Runge, I noticed his design fee is $3,000. So he has come up with the price. I'm sure you could get Rock City to do the same thing.
Sure. Okay, Cheryl?
And then since it was mentioned John's Island, we should consider that as well.
Okay. If you've got additional landscape architects, get them to us promptly so that we can go talk to these people. I personally am happy with the two that we've kind of narrowed down to, Rock City and Chris Runge, but I will be glad to talk to any additional landscape architects that somebody suggests, but get them to me within a week so that we can get this moving along. I think it's a project that really deserves some attention and some expedition to get it started so we can get the fountains blocked out again.
And Chad, let me ask you, is it the ultimate plan of the landscape committee to get this project, once the appropriate people are identified and hired, to get this project done within a time span of 12 months?
We have not gotten to that point yet, Jay. That was part of what we would talk about later in the meeting on this same issue. Right now, you had raised the issue of we need to go direct to a landscape architect, and so I'm trying to get that out of the way before we move on with areas that need attention.
Fine.
Cheryl?
can I want to go back to some of the points that Lynn and Jay have made about the time that when it was all taken down. Chad would, on the landscape monthly meetings, Chad would take us around, anybody who wanted to go and come to the meetings, and we'd walk around with Tim Beldy is one of them who we walked around with, and Chad we would point out this should come down to about 4 feet and cut this down, and we went through the whole side, just the plan that we had to get it all trimmed up, pull all the vines. I mean, it was just lickety split. We could get this done, and then everything would come back without any vines on them and lots of leaves at the bottom. And then when the time came, by the time it got to be August, now we've gone from like March, April, May meetings where we all were looking all over the property, to August without anything being touched. And you know what happens in the summer? Vines just grow wild. By the time we got to August, we had nothing but a shroud of vines that absolutely crushed and killed everything we had. We did not plan to do that at all. We did not plan the timeline when people were gone. I mean, I've been accused of doing this while Lynn was gone and Mindy and Jay were gone. Absolutely not. I wanted this thing done a year ago to clean that up. And had we done that a year ago, we wouldn't be in the mess we're in now. So
Cheryl.
I just want you all to know that I was there and Chad was there, and we saw you couldn't get through there. It was the dark cave that everything was nothing but a stick and a mess in there. So
Okay,
just
Cheryl,
had to get that off my chest.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl. It only solidifies my reasoning that we need a professional person, not ourselves. Hire. We're not going to get them for $3,000 or $4,000. It's not going to happen in this lifetime. Just be prepared. It's going to cost X amount of dollars. Bite the bullet. Do it. Spend the $100,000 overall. Design, planting, removal, whatever, and be done with it. And that's it.
I know just to root rake that area is going to be about $8,500.
That doesn't surprise me.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. It surprised me. I'll tell you.
It doesn't surprise me.
Okay, let's go on with Cheryl. Did you have any comments on, do we want to go ahead and proceed now with a selection between Rock City and Chris Runge? Do we
I
want to give an
like to
opportunity?
stay local. I like to stay local, and I think they're both very reputable. I know what Jay's saying. Working with someone from Johns Island, I just see more dollar signs, I think.
Not
And maybe I'm
necessarily.
wrong, but
Not necessarily.
not necessarily. You're right. But I really don't want to spend $20,000 to get someone's plan. So I do like the idea that they're willing to give us a plan for, what are you saying, $5,000?
The only problem is you get what you pay for usually.
Barb, do you have any comment on this?
I would just like to see it get underway and get done.
Okay, so am I hearing that we want to go ahead and make a selection between Chris Runge and Rock City, or do we want to give them a chance to get 2 more landscape architects in here that we can interview?
Being unfamiliar with everyone down here, I don't want to make that decision. Or I just think that it's important to get someone reputable, get it started and get it done.
Okay.
Right, and realize, Chad, you'd have to take it to the board.
Oh, absolutely.
So you want to start on it as soon as you can, because we're already in the month of May. So I would keep going along the line that you and the committee have been working on.
Okay, does anybody on the committee have a preference between Rock City and Chris Runge?
No,
I
because
don't.
we haven't seen we don't have a comparison to look at.
Like, how much do they charge for, how do they charge for their plants that they put in? You know, I mean, Rock City has their own nursery. Chris Runge will get a discount, I suppose, so.
Chris Runge, let me talk a little bit about what he has proposed. He not only would be the architect to give us a plan, and I think he said he does a plan and then maybe 1 revision. Any additional plans are additional cost for the $3,000. He will give us a list of plants, and then he will oversee getting bids for his plan once we have approved the plan. He charges for that. I think everything past the planning stage is $135 an hour. He will then oversee the installation of the plants. However many years we want it to go, or one time, that's fine. He just charges for that. But he doesn't just do the plan and walk away. He is hands-on from plan to the last plant being planted. That will certainly run his cost up, which to me is fine. I don't want to be down there every day doing these things. And we need somebody who knows what he's doing. I like Rock City. I like them too. I don't know that I could make a choice between the two at this point. I like the suggestion of let's get 2 more architects to talk to. Let's get on it. We'll have another quick meeting to make a decision once we've been able to interview them. Barb, how long are you down for?
We're leaving next Friday.
Next Friday. So we probably, well, no, we won't get it done before you're gone.
But remember, you always
Well,
have
there's email.
conference calls, so even if
Right.
Barbara's gone, she
So
can.
we can do a quick meeting after that, and let's make a decision and get this done. Get me names of architects for those who want us to look at additional architects by next Friday. If their schedules allow, we'll have met with them by the following Friday and make a decision very soon thereafter, if not that second Friday from now. I don't want this lingering with what ifs and what ifs and what ifs. Let's get it started and let's get this thing going.
Chad, I will say with the Ocean Colony, I do like the way they have handled that side. They cleared it all out and they've taken their time, and I think they're doing a beautiful job.
And that
Thank
was
you, Cheryl.
Range's work.
Thank you, Ann.
And I love Rock City too. I mean, between those two, but I'll get you Robbins. I'll call her, see if she'll come out, if you'd like.
Okay, fine. That'd be
She's a
great.
landscape architect.
Have the committee looked at this list that I set out on May 4?
Yeah.
We started on general requirements. Anybody have any additional general requirements?
No.
What about the northeast sector? The items on there are block the view of the fountains, open ocean views, replant the cleared area, consider reducing the cleared area by 1/2 and increase the lawn size. Gives us less maintenance as far as plants are concerned. Consider moving some of the palms to use to block the fountains. One of the landscape people we talked with suggested that that might be a use for the palms. Another said it's cheaper to just buy new palms. So again, I don't know. We'll just have to see how that works out. And not just the cleared northeast sector, but we've got a lawn area up near the hedge of arbicolas near the building. There's some bare areas. We need to figure out what to do with that. We need to figure out what to do with this bare area, the north crossover, and the south of that north crossover. That lawn is a mess. It's just got holes. It's got weeds. It's got, things don't grow there except for weeds. We need to deal with that one as well. We've had several people recommend a Kalusha hedge. Now that they've pointed out what they are, they're all over. They're kind of replacing ficus hedges. Easier to maintain, can get to a height big enough to block the fountains in the area past from the drainage area, if everybody knows where I'm talking about, to the car wash parking lot. And that'll give us some blockage in there, probably removing the oleanders and the areca palms that are in there and not doing such a good job. Any other items?
Can I
in the
say about,
northeast sector?
can I just talk about that for a second?
Sure.
Where Lynn and the North Wing look out. There isn't a lot of space from their driveway or their, parking area to the sidewalk. Lynn, what do you and Jay suggest that goes in there that will grow, and so you don't have to see those? That's always been a challenge so you don't see cars parked over there. I know that you don't want that.
Right, well, there's always been, aside from the oleander, something a little brushier. Obviously, the palm trees, I'm sorry, that's not my dog, that has to, from the ground do a blockage. The palm trees alone won't do it.
Somebody's got some noise going on and they need to shut it off.
It's right here. I got them out.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's taken care of.
Thanks. So, there's a variety of things, but as I say, it's now that it's been taken out, it'll take a while for some of those more dense bushes to grow again. You're not going to have anything that's fast that will actually block light when you have that thin a space.
The Kalusha will, and I've seen it around in some of the subdivisions. I don't know the names of the subdivisions yet, but as you go past Beachland Boulevard down towards the 17th bridge on the right-hand side is a big hedge of Kalusha. It's a bigger leaf. It looks something like a scabiole, but it's not as invasive.
That's across, sorry.
That's in ocean colonies work. So if you go over, Rod Foster can show you where he used Kalusha.
And it creates a very nice blockage. That's, again, layman just thinking that might be what we use there. Get rid of those oleanders, which if you trim them are low and leave some air or leave some light and some vision of the fountains. But you've got to trim them or they get too leggy and then you see through the oleander itself. The arecas aren't getting enough sun. So if we pull those things out, what was blocking your view before was the leggy oleanders and the non-trimmed palm fronds. There were no other plants back in there.
Right.
Somebody seems to think there were other plants behind there that were removed, but there was nothing removed. It was just cutting the palm trees and cutting the oleanders down.
Right. Well, that's why I had recommended earlier that we not trim those palms because there's that layer that happens right there. In other words, the lower layer was oleander, then there were palms, and that's right. You have to plan for something that blocks
Right,
top
but
to
that
bottom.
is a critical issue in that area of any
Right,
plan that
it
we're
is.
doing.
Yeah.
Anything else in the Northeast? Go to the Northwest sector. Complete planting the cleared area out towards A1A. There's still a large area that has never been planted.
I believe it's Jay.
I think it's J2. You just passed me.
What's Jay? I'm not, huh?
No, wait,
Who
wait.
is that?
There's some feedback.
No, it's Straney
Just
is
sitting
Floyd.
here.
Somebody's got a radio or a television or something that,
I
Sounds
have
like
nothing
it's
on.
people talking.
It's the iPhone one.
iPhone. I don't have my iPhone in here.
No,
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 it's not you,
no,
Jay.
no, Jay. No, that's not you. Not you. It's, well, I got that one muted.
Who
Is
is
it
that?
because I have, Ron, is it because you gave me your iPad?
No, I think
No.
it's okay. I think it's okay at the moment. Let's just see how we're going here.
okay.
Doesn't
so
have
the
a picture.
Northwest, I personally had suggested getting some eye-catching plants amongst the ferns, some of the ginger. Maybe we can reuse some of the plants being removed from the courtyard, planted out there, and clean up the ferns near the driveway. They're so ratty and so dry. Did you talk to Tropical about that, or is that now on your list for them to deal
It
with?
was on the list last week. and
Last
They
week.
didn't do a thing about it.
So it's a continue on.
Right.
But it's on today's. It's on today's, right?
That's right.
Hopefully
Fine.
it's on.
Okay, good. I have nothing else in the Northwest sector. Anybody? Southwest sector. Eliminate, I wrote eliminate. It's
Yeah, I know,
eliminate
not illuminate.
the
I was
invasive.
lighting up trees. I want you to know, Chad. I was lighting up trees, wondering what you were lighting up the oleander. It says
Damn autocorrect.
eliminate, not illuminate.
Well, never mind. I won't do that.
That's okay. That was
And
after
complete
your
the
two
plantings in
lines.
the area. I think we actually have completed most of the plantings in that area and clean up the ferns near the driveway. And there is a planted area or non-planted area near the fire hydrant as you start to the garage entrance. And none of that has ever been finished between us and Ocean Colony. We need something back in there that they need to pay attention to. Anything else in the Southwest sector?
There actually, when I spoke with Rod Foster, most of the unplanted area over in the Southwest is actually Ocean Colony's property.
Yes,
And
it
they're
is.
intending, at least the last time I spoke with him, they're intending to do a dog walk.
Oh, okay. In fact, we've probably planted on some of his land back in there when we did some of the ferns. So they're welcome. Anything else in the Southwest sector? The circle interior, including the meadow. Guess that's what we call it. I called it the croquet lawn. We need to complete the plantings in the circular area. The fishtails that are in there are encroaching on some of the additional trees. They never should have been planted in that area. That comes not from me, but from every landscape person we've talked to.
And me. Take
And
me
from
to-
Cheryl. They need to come out. Maybe they can be transplanted to the Northeast sector to help
Perfect.
planting stuff there. If not, just trash them.
There's, I think, 5 of them. It would be great if we could have those dug up and plant them and repurpose them. We have so much planting and so many
Cheryl, they-
plants around here.
Cheryl, they're like rabbits. I think they're now 9.
You think? I don't know. I counted 5. So-
Okay. Remove the fishtails, consider moving them, remove any invasives, consider moving additional palms. As you come in the driveway to your left, there's a grove of palms that seems to be interfering with some of the other trees. Maybe we can move some of that if we get the guy that says it's cheap to move palms and use
It's
for the blockage.
better to just cut them down.
Yeah, probably.
We have hundreds and hundreds on our property.
And we're going to illuminate
Yeah.
again, the oversized bougainvillea at the southwest tennis court corner. We'll eliminate or replace the standard oleanders west of the tennis court. Both of them are leaning terribly and can't be straightened up. Something needs to be done with those.
I
Anything
don't
else?
have a problem with that bougainvillea as long as they keep it trimmed. Does anybody not like that bougainvillea there?
I talked to somebody, Cheryl, that said if you cut it so far down, it'll probably die. Although I've heard everybody says you can cut bougainvilleas to the ground and they come back. So I don't know the answer. I don't mind it. It's just not been maintained.
Well, can't we just start with cutting it and seeing what happens?
Yeah, I mean, they've usually trimmed it every 3 months or so, and I thought it was nice there. I don't know
I
why
agree
we
with you, Cheryl.
take it
Anything
out.
else in the circle? In the entrance, both sides of the entrance are not unified. They need to be unified and cleaned up. The grass in the center of the two driveways is just, I'm not sure it's grass anymore. It's really ratty. It needs to be replaced or something else put in there. One of the landscape architects we talked to had suggested putting a wow factor in our entrance to perk it
Yeah.
up. Maybe some big urns or something at the columns. And I'm not sure whether the folks that live here want a wow entrance. So that may be
Well,
something
I
we need to
would
deal
like
with.
a wow entrance, and I think we could get it if we take out those sword ferns and just put. I mean, if you go by these entrances, ours looks the worst. I think it's looked like that for 30 or
Yeah, it
40
needs to be
years.
cleaned
So
up. So
I don't personally like the sword ferns. You can just pull them right up, and I can I just repurposed about 25 of them the other day in bare areas that I just plucked them out of different places, and
I can
Joanne and I dug a hole and tried to fill in some of these other
anything
spots.
else anything else in the entrance item? In the courtyard, the courtyard's got some plans from the board or the building committee to deal with a water issue in the north and south buildings. And they're going to have to remove the plantings in those. I guess it's 4 planters, 2 on each side of the entrance to those 2 buildings. I've been told you can't reuse some of those plants because they're all wadded into one ball, but I can't imagine you can't use some of the philodendron. They grow anywhere. Some of the ginger might be usable. But if we're going to do that, we might as well try to freshen up the entire courtyard while we're at it.
Well, you're going to have a couple of issues in the courtyard that the physical plant committee will be dealing with at some point. We have the 4 planters that are an issue, but we also, more than 70% of the electrical items that are out there have all rotted at the base, and they're going to need to be removed and replaced. But we need somebody similar to what Jay was saying about a landscape architect. We really want to get a lighting guy to come and take a look and give us some information, like somebody like, that LED place over on US 1. But there are lighting places. We have to make decisions. What do we want to highlight? What do we want to use just to make sure people can see and don't trip? So there's a lot that's going to need to be done on the courtyard too, Chad. I agree with you. And I think that your group and Ian Whitty's group are going to have to work together on that project.
Yeah, in terms of the physical plant committee, what we're doing now, and we're having a meeting next Thursday, so I hope all of you who are on this conference call will also be on that one. And that will deal with our roof issues, and it's been a major endeavor to get roofers in and to get estimates and to figure out exactly what should be done on the roof. Once we finish the roof, we'll move on to the planters and the entryways to the 5670 and the 5690.
Thank you very much, Ann. Anything else anybody has to add to the entrance? Or the courtyard, sorry. Southeast border with Ocean Colony. Complete or replace the hedges that are in front of the sea grapes. match the plantings with those in the northeast lawn and borders. We've got the Carissa plums and the midget oleanders and then the palm trees.
Right.
Whatever's on one side, we need to have on the other side. And I don't know, I've had a lot of comment, both pro and con, by the way, of dealing with the palm trees that are in the middle of those circles. A lot of people want them gone. A lot of people say that's the signature of the Victoria. I don't want you to touch them. So I think that's going to be an issue we're going to need to deal with in some fashion. And it's not just automatically remove those palm trees. What else have I got? Freshen up other areas. Consider replacing the ferns along the sidewalk. They really encroach on the sidewalk there, and we need something a little less invasive. Replant the areas of removed bougainvillea and hibiscus. That's out at the entrance to the sidewalk where those things were all dead and removed. Consider replacing the sea grapes around the pit. Can they be used to plant in the dune? They're probably too grown. Sea grapes are generally thought not to be a good plant to be near a building, as the roots are very invasive to the structure. So that would just be something that I threw in there. Not that I dislike the sea grapes, but it just seems to be a bad choice. Comments on southeast border with Ocean Colony. With the pool area, remove and replace the scabola on the north side of the pool and in the southwest corner of the pool deck, and replace it with something that is not considered an invasive. Plant perennials at the oleander on the northwest corner of the deck. Anything else around the pool? I think the pool looks really good now that the sea grapes have been cut.
So if you take out those scabola, there's something about it, if the health department would come out and find everything torn out and nothing put right back in immediately, we would have to put up a fence.
Right.
And it would
Correct.
be one of those chain link fences. So the timing on that has to be perfect.
Impeccable.
So we don't have to look at that.
Correct.
Just so
Thank
you know,
you.
because
Yes. Keep reminding us that.
okay.
On the dune, Joanne and I have talked to we've talked to the county coastal engineer's assistant, or she was filling that position, and her name was Molly Kleinpeter. And she suggested that we may want to consider some sacrificial sand to protect our dune. If you look at the sacrificial sand that's been put in next door at Ocean Colony, it seems to be going away and is being sacrificed pretty readily. We also talked to a person who would deliver that type of sand, and I think after pulling and wheedling him, he finally said it would be about $50,000 to put the sand in. So I'm not,
Right.
I don't know if we need it. Not my job, but I personally would like to have it. And yes, it is going to go away. It's going to go away just like we did next door. If anybody's walked up towards Johns Island, they did a huge renourishment project up there, and a lot of that is now washed down. Not eliminated, and it has protected up there. And I would like to see the dune completed, planting with, we've got some weeds and non-appropriate trees that are growing on the dune that I'd like to see replaced with sea grapes.
And we also have vines in the dunes that need to come out.
Some of the vines, are those the ones on the ocean side you're talking about, Ann?
Yep.
Okay.
Please be careful. I mean, that's really a huge deal when you're talking about the dune and the protection, part of why we have a lot of protection.
Yes,
Once
it
again.
is. Absolutely. And that's why, to me, it's very important to, even if we have to put in sacrificial sand, if it gives us some additional protection for a couple of years, let's do it.
Yeah, well, it won't, but that's,
Well,
problem.
and let's also remember that we put this to a vote of the unit owners, was it 2.5 years ago? And we didn't get a lot of enthusiasm for it.
Correct.
That was when everybody was doing the replenishment, and we, as a matter of fact, Joanne, you may remember, because we had the meeting in, on your porch there, that we did an emergency meeting of the board.
Yeah.
And we put it out to the owners, and the owners were not very enthusiastic about it.
We've gotten some new owners now, so that vote may
Well,
change.
I think the issue that you come up with though, Chad, on that, which is what a lot of them brought up, is if you put it up there, like we're seeing, you can put it up, and yes, it is sacrificial and it goes away, but it doesn't mean that anything that is after it is saved.
No,
There's no proof of any of that.
right.
So really what you're doing is you're agreeing that you're happy to throw away, $50,000.
It does keep the water from reaching the dune that we have now and
There's no
further
proof of
eroding into that.
Doesn't.
There's
It
no
doesn't
proof
do
of that.
No.
That's what some people say, but there isn't any proof of that. And we had, and you'll remember his name, Scott.
Yep. An
Scott
engineer.
came out.
Yep.
Scott came out from the county, and he also said the same thing. He said, your better bet is to try to do what Bermuda Bay has done, where you get your plants to grow over the dune, so the water's hitting the plants and not the actual dune.
Right.
Okay,
That's my understanding.
then that's something,
That's the science.
Well, that seems to be the latest recommendation, and you can see if you walk the whole shoreline here, you can see a lot of the places have started to work on that basis instead of the sand replenishment basis.
Right.
What they're trying to do is use plants to hold the dunes, but have the plants be the first thing that the water hits when it's surging.
Right. If I can interject really quickly, just on that point, the city ran into that issue when I was on the board, the council, and the idea being that it's a long-term process to get things to grow, even if they're in the berm. When they wiped out the entire piece, even the road at J.C. Park, that's what happens with water intrusion, and they had already cut back some of those plants. They've been trying and trying and trying to get the plants to regrow, but it takes a very long time. So the part that wasn't washed away, you'll notice on the north, if you see the north end of J.C. Park, had a lot of sea grapes, a lot of roots. There still were a lot of what we have next to our pool, not preferred plants, but if they're in there, they will hold your ground for you. The root system is important. That's why I'm saying be careful about replacing things in our dune. It weakens the dune.
That's right.
And Scaevola is not a phase 1 invasive, it's a phase 2. So I think before we remove Scaevola, we really need to think about what the removal and replacement costs are going to be, and whether it will weaken the dunes.
I think we'll need to take all of that into consideration.
Yes.
The only other issue today is, do we want to get into how we're going to pay for the landscape project? I think we need to find out what the proposal is, and from whoever we select, either Chris Runge, Rock City, one of the additional landscape architects that may be recommended to us, and get some proposal on how much it's going to cost before we can actually take it to the.
Yeah.
But what we as a committee would want to do is to make a recommendation to the board for the board to then consider, and probably depending on the cost, present it to the owners. But that's up to the board, not to us to deal with. But I think we could make a proposal to the board on how to pay for it. And I think it depends on how much the project's going to be.
Well, Chad, if I remember when you started at the very beginning of this meeting, you mentioned that, we could look at things as a 1-year situation or a 2-year or a 3-year situation. So I think that you guys need to pull all that kind of stuff together and bring that to the board along with your recommendation. And then the board can chew on that and get some feedback from some of the owners. But that, no matter what it is you end up recommending, it will go to the owners.
Yes, I think so. It's too broad a project to not go to the owners.
Exactly. And then the dollar number is too large too.
We don't know that yet, Lizzie.
Okay.
I mean, it very well could be 100 or less, but I'm expecting it to be more. Last item here is discussion of the landscape plan for the next 3 years. I think it's really going to depend a lot on what is done with this overall landscape plan that we've just been talking about. I think the landscape plan that we have in place is one of those that was a little bit of replacement here and a little bit of replacement there and a lot of maintenance items. And I think what's going to be in that for the upcoming 3 years depends on what we wind up doing for this big landscape project. If we remove a lot of what's in there, it may be just a maintenance manual. And it may just be what we get from the architect. Did anybody get a chance to look at the landscape plan and have any other specific comments for the landscape 3-year plan? Anybody have any other topics they want to talk about? Meeting is over. Less than 2 hours.
I got one thing I want to say. This is Ron Kreider. As a board member, I would like to thank Jay Grutman and Lynn Larkin for being with us today and their constructive criticism and your suggestions. You guys have been absent without leave for a lot of our meetings, and we appreciate you being here, and you have a lot of good ideas, and we need those ideas. We'd rather hear you on these videos than to get your letters. I think it makes a whole lot more sense, and it's a lot more constructive. So thank you very much for being here. I also think in the foreseeable future, when we have these important things coming up, we're probably going to be maybe down back in the cabana fairly soon, hopefully. But even if we're in the cabana, we're going to continue to do the Zoom meetings from the cabana for those of you who aren't available to come down to the cabana, because like Jay may be up in Rhode Island or wherever he is, and some of the other people are where they normally live, they can still be a part of this, and we will have it recorded so that we can go back and see what we said and how we did it. So thank you very
Ron,
much.
that's a wonderful idea.
Great idea, Ron. Thanks for
Very
getting
good.
all this together.
And
Thank you.
our committee is going to take the thanks from the physical plant committee and the board for being your guinea pigs on our Zoom meeting.
I appreciate it.
I apologize profusely. The screw up on this whole thing today was 100% my fault. I started too late. And if I had started when I planned to start, it would have been 1,000 times better. I promise the next one will be really good. And we'll be
Are you promising me that the physical plant one next week will go without a hitch?
Promise.
All right.
Well, Ron, we appreciate that you did it all and that
Absolutely.
you allowed us to run on your license and all. What you've done for us today and going forward has just been wonderful.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you,
I
Ron.
agree.
Thank you.
I agree.
Thank you.
I love compliments. I take them.
And he gets very few of them. So
My wife says I am the supreme narcissist. So you are just speaking my.
Just be sure to give him a like on his videos every day.
Oh,
Just
yeah,
hit that
yeah,
every
like
day.
button. He loves likes.
push the like button.
Uh-huh.
okay, thank you all. I'm getting up and letting him take over again.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Now you're. iPad.
Who does?
Cheryl has your iPad. Yeah, she thinks it's mine, but it's yours.
I'm gonna bring this down to you, Ron.
Bring it down.
Okay.
Aren't you done?
Thank you, Ron.
Bye. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good meeting. Yeah.
No?